Today, we can talk about consciously choosing to vibrate with love. This is kind of related to what I talked about last week and what Jen talked about on Tuesday. And this idea that it seems like in the world right now, there's a lot of negativity, a lot of anger, a lot of pain, a lot of sadness, a lot of suffering. And it can be really easy to absorb stuff from the world, absorb negativity, absorb pain, absorb sadness, absorb suffering, absorb anger, absorb hate, because there's so much of that being vibrated around in the world, so much of that being passed along. And it's especially if those of us here, if you're watching this, if you're drawn to this, you're probably a pretty empathic person, pretty sensitive person, very aware of the feelings of others and tend to pick up emotions, pick up the state of vibration of people around you. And even not people around you, just from the world in general. I know sometimes it feels like I just feel this negativity weighing on me from just the world in general. Just from, it seems like it's sometimes the cosmic winds are just blowing fiercely and just feels heavy, feels uncomfortable. And I know for me, I tend to, when I feel a bunch of stuff, I tend to go towards kind of depression and despondency. You know, other people, sometimes they feel this heaviness and then it comes out as anger. I think it seems like kind of a divide there. Some people tend more towards anger, some people tend more towards depression or despondency. I think it's just differences in how we interpret and express the feelings, that the energy that we're feeling from the world. And so when this happens, when something happens, when we're exposed to a heavy dose of negativity, whether it's from an interaction in person with people, or from over Zoom, or from a work meeting, say, or just from relatives, or from friends or acquaintances, or even just people in the store or sitting in traffic. That's a great way to soak up all kinds of negativity. So whenever we're around this, whenever we're exposed to this dose of negativity, whenever we feel like we've taken on a lot, the common instinctive response is to kind of just pass it on to whoever we encounter next. I mean, that's kind of how we're built, how we're hardwired. Whenever we take on something from someone else, the natural response is to just dish it back out to the next person that we come across. There's even, this seems to be some kind of evolutionary response. I saw a study one time that talked about in chimpanzees, they're measuring cortisol levels in chimpanzees, and after they were kind of, at one point the alpha male comes in and like beats up on this beta male, and that caused the cortisol levels of the beta male to spike right from the stress. And then that beta male turned around and beat up on some lower ranking chimpanzee, and his cortisol levels decreased after he harassed this other chimp, but then the cortisol levels at other chimp increased. So it seems, for whatever reason, it does kind of make us feel better when we pass on whatever stress we take on from other people. I mean, physiologically, somehow that reduces our stress to pass on the stress we receive from other people, to just pass it on to someone else. I mean, that seems to be some kind of physiological outlet that works for us to reduce the stress that we take on from others. And so that's one way to approach it. That's one way to handle it. But what that does, it just winds up perpetuating that stress, perpetuating that negativity out into the world. And so we just kind of keeps looping around in the world. I mean, you can kind of see this, that there's just all this negativity being passed from one interaction to another in people. And And especially right now, it seems like there's just a lot of negativity being spread around on the internet, on social media, and the news. It seems like it's become kind of an epidemic of negativity out there. And it does kind of seem like some kind of virus that we just catch from other people and then pass on to other people. So that's kind of the instinctive reaction, to just dump it on whoever we come across next. But we don't have to do that. I mean, that's what happens when we're unconscious, when we just react, because that's our natural instinctive reaction. When we take on this negativity, just dump it on to whoever we come across next. Even if it's not overt, it can be a passive aggressive thing that we do. I know I'm really good at that sometimes, that passing stuff along passive aggressively. But that's what happens when we don't consciously and mindfully examine what's going on within us. So if we find ourselves taking on a bunch of negativity from some interaction with the world, whether from a person or just social media or whatever it is, when we find ourselves feeling stressed out or feeling angry, feeling sad, feeling depressed, feeling heavy, if we don't take a moment and mindfully examine it and try to understand what's causing this, what's triggering this, what within us is bringing this up in the moment, if we don't stop and mindfully examine what's going on, then we tend to just pass it on to the next person we encounter. And so, but if we want to break the pattern, want to break the cycle, then it's up to us to consciously choose to examine this negativity and try to transmute it. And that's what we can do as sensitive people in this world, as heart-centered people, as people that, if we want to spread love in the world, then we have the choice on an individual level to examine our emotions and examine and consciously choose what kind of vibration we pass on to others that we interact with. Even if we soak up negative vibrations from the world, we have a chance, we have the opportunity through mindful self-examination, through meditation, through yoga, through things like that, to transmute this negativity rather than pass it on. And the way to do that is all the things that we've been talking about here, to just sit with it. So if we find ourselves feeling particularly triggered, we can sit with it and experience it and dive into it. Try to discover where exactly we're feeling this. Where in the body is this feeling coming out? What kind of feeling is it? How does it make us feel? Examine this feeling, this strong negative feeling that we've soaked up. And when we sit with it for a while, and maybe sometimes even just sitting in meditation, or even talking through it with a trusted friend, we can sometimes, at the root of our reaction to this negative energy. So we take on some negative energy and then we have a reaction to it. Often it's either a similar negativity or whatever kind of, maybe, I mean, if someone else yells at us, we may then internalize that into our despondency and our sadness, negativity. So whatever happens when we take on some negative energy, we can examine what's going on with ourselves. When we find ourselves triggered, and we find ourselves feeling strongly in some particular negative emotion, that's a chance to examine it, sit with it, try to find out what's going on. Why am I feeling this way? Most of the time, it's linked to one of our early unresolved childhood wounds. It's recreating some kind of pattern, or it's similar to something we've experienced in the past. And it's the reason we feel this strong, negative, unpleasant reaction to it is because it's tapping into one of our unresolved core wounds. And so each of these events that we have, each of these interactions can be an opportunity to better understand ourselves, better understand our wounds, better understand what parts within us need more love. And so that's how we can, us as empaths, as sensitive beings, that's how we can start to positively influence the world, even if it seems like we're the only ones doing it. Even if it seems like people are so intent on spreading negativity, well, it's got to start somewhere. And it's a ripple effect. I'm sure you've felt it just the same way when someone dumps negativity on us, and we feel like turning around and dumping it on other people. When someone dumps positivity on us, often we turn around and feel like spreading that on. So it's a ripple effect. It can be up to us to start spreading out these ripples of positive energy, spreading out ripples of love, ripples of positivity through smiles, even just smiling at people in the store, smiling at people you pass on the street. It's a way to change the narrative. It's a way to change the story of negativity that's so dominant in our culture right now. And it all starts with us making the conscious choice to break the cycle, to transmute the negativity and spread love instead. And so with anything, you have to be very careful. There's a fine line between transmuting the negativity and just repressing it. So we don't, if you're feeling a lot of negativity, like we've talked about before, it never does good to just try to ignore it or repress it. You know, that positive vibes only thing doesn't really work. So we don't want to repress it. We just need to examine it and figure out where within us needs more love to heal it. And then by giving love to our wound, that's how we can transmute the negativity rather than just repress it or spread it on to others. So I think that's enough on that topic for now. Any questions or comments about that?